been seeing this photo floating around the internet. Now, this is clearly not a real photo. It was clearly made by AI, which is a separate conversation. But this photo has been getting a lot of traction on the internet, and it illustrates a point we've been talking about in a lot of my recent videos, which is the death of individual beauty. Where instead of playing into our unique features, we are encouraged to change them, whether that's through cosmetics and different makeup techniques, or even cosmetic procedures. I've been planning to do a part 2 to this video that I posted recently, and I wanted to open it up with that visual because it's quite striking, though obviously fake, but it illustrates this idea well. And we spoke in part 1 about how beauty standards are taught to us, and the beauty, no pun intended, in that is that they can also be unlearned. So in that other video that I will leave linked down below, we walked through a lot of physical traits that we're kind of taught are undesirable or should be corrected, or you should use makeup to adjust. And instead we talked about ways to lean into them, to play into them. And I had so many requests to talk about more features, so I wanted to do a part 2 today. And to really kick it off, we talked about large foreheads in that last video, and I wanted to highlight a comment from a viewer. Bonnie Dove wrote, "They plucked their hair to have bigger foreheads way back then." And this is true. In the Renaissance era, it was not uncommon for women to pluck or shave their foreheads so that they would appear larger. This is a painting from the 1400s that visualizes it really well. FIT writes, "The hairline in the portrait of the woman is unnatural. 15th century women often plucked or shaved their hairline back several inches toward the illusion of a lengthy head, a sign of intelligence. She has severely tweezed her eyebrows to complete the effect." I cannot think of a better example of how beauty trends are manufactured than this, because the same forehead that so many subscribers were telling me they feel bad about having is the forehead that was praised in that time period that people were trying to artificially achieve by plucking their hairs out. It illustrates perfectly how our perception of beauty and our beauty standards are taught and programmed to us, but also how we can deprogram them in ourselves. And with that, let's kick it off with asymmetry. Oh, also, I did get a haircut. I think this is the first time my hair has been short enough that it like fully fits in the frame. I had pretty long hair before this. I got at least like 6 inches cut off. So yes, I did get a haircut. Okay, but asymmetry. I don't know about you, but I have been hearing so many people talking about facial harmonizing lately, which is basically the idea of trying to remove that asymmetry from their faces.
So first, Dr. Sir will scan and analyze the face. It is so cool.
Your under eye is just a little bit more hollow. You're a little flatter right here in this midsection, right about the mid-pupillary line. It's a little bit lower angle-wise. So you're higher here, you're flatter here. So this can come up a little bit, and look at all the space. Yeah, so we're gonna bring this cheek bone up a little bit. We'll just use our cannula coming up this way.
Whether that means your brows are a little bit uneven, I know that is the case for me. My brows tend to be quite uneven. Maybe your eyes, maybe one's a bit more hooded. That is also the case for me. I'm kind of describing myself here, but everyone has some level of asymmetry to their own faces, and I will start off by saying everyone seems to think their face is less symmetrical than it is. Like, nobody thinks that they have symmetry in their face. I hear this all the time from subscribers, like, "Oh, my face is so unsymmetrical." And I hear it even from like friends in my personal life, and I'm looking at their face and I'm like, girl, I never would have noticed the things that you're aware of. So I want to start there and start off by calling out the fact that we see our faces, obviously more than other people. We are looking them in the mirror all the time. We're scrutinizing our photographs. No one else is noticing these little asymmetries in your faces. But nonetheless, I want to talk about this topic, and obviously there are different levels of asymmetry. You could have really asymmetrical features. You could have just some less noticeable ones that maybe stand out more to you. And with asymmetry, like everything else on this list, the advice that people generally get for it is to correct it through their makeup, through their wardrobe, through different aesthetic choices. But I want to talk about how you could do the opposite and actually kind of lean into and play into it. Really by adding on additional layers of asymmetry. Starting for anyone that wears glasses, I love asymmetrical glasses where the frames are 2 different shapes, 2 different sizes, where they have a slant, where they have a curve. It's such a cool look visually, and it always reminds me of like Cubism art where there are these separate pieces that are coming together to make this really visually interesting look. But if you don't wear glasses, you can still do this with your other accessories. So you could choose mismatched earrings. You could just pair together two different earrings. I think this is especially cool if your hair is kind of like off so the earrings are visible or even up. This also works if you have a lot of piercings in your ears. You can really switch up the stacks and make them very different. You could even do like one whole ear gold, one whole ear silver, different types of shapes between the two ears. You could wear just one earring and not another earring. Again, playing into that asymmetry instead of using makeup or even like cosmetic treatments to try to correct it. Okay, also with your haircut, an asymmetrical bob is really fun here as well to kind of layer on more asymmetry into the look. A lot of ways to play with your hair to play up a level of asymmetry. How many times have I said asymmetry? And I'm not done yet. Okay, another one, going into makeup. There are a lot of choices here for makeup, especially with your eyes. So this is a place a lot of us tend to notice asymmetry on our own faces. So you could do some sort of mismatched eyeliner, like do two different graphic looks between the two eyes, or you could do two different colors. So you could do like blue eyeshadow on one eye and pink eyeshadow on the other, kind of like that color blocking type of look. I think there are ways to take this like really cool and extreme. Like you could do different colored lashes, like a blue lash on this eye, a green lash on this eye, and then maybe even invert again the eyeshadow colors. Like you could try so many different things where they are mismatched between the two different eyes to again play into the asymmetry. The possibilities really are endless here, and I think it's fun to really play into this feature. The next one that I want to talk about is one that I know all too well, and that is acne. I have talked many times before about my journey with acne. It is something I've struggled with throughout my life and even into my adult years. I remember being a teen thinking like one day when I'm an adult I'm not gonna get acne, but no, even now that I'm in my 30s, I still struggle with acne. And I've spoken pretty vulnerably on my channel before about how much acne has affected my self-confidence and how big of an impact acne has had on my life. So I'll start off by saying, even before I get into the topic of acne, with this and with anything on the list, I know it's easier said than done to be like, just play around and like play up your acne. It's like, okay, well, it's not that simple. I never want to minimize the very real feelings that so many people have about these things. With acne, it is so human. It is so normal. Most people will struggle with some form of acne at some point in their lives. I know for me, it got to a point where I was like, I can't really cover this. Like makeup can cover it up to an extent, and I think that's part of the beauty of makeup is you can do a lot of things with it. It is very transformative, but sometimes I didn't want to do that, and sometimes I just struggled to do that. Like as much as I would try, it was still visible. Like you could see the texture or the pigment for some of those really dark breakouts, or especially like the pigment that's left behind after a breakout. And for that, I really loved following acne positive creators who will do their makeup and not try to cover up their acne. And it was this like almost aha moment for me of, oh, you can do that. It doesn't mean your makeup is any less done or any less perfected.
Time to do the makeup, but we're not covering my acne or acne scars today. Kind of a fun eyeshadow look today to bring the focus to the eyes. Kind of want to do like a fun eyeshadow. Oh, this purple is kind of fun. Blush is my fave. I actually find adding blush actually like blends my acne scars together. It makes everything look more cohesive, even if my actual skin texture isn't. And here is the finished look. I saw this look on my Instagram and I want to recreate it, but on my acne-prone skin with no coverage. I don't even know how to put these on. Kind of just using gel to stick them on. I think this is the finished look. Just remember that your skin is beautiful no matter the breakouts.
Okay, and on the other end of the spectrum, for the days you're not wearing makeup, and or you could also pair this on the days that you are wearing makeup, I love so much the brand Starface. I know other brands also sell like sticker type of pimple patches, but I have such an affinity for the brand Starface because of what they have done with pimple patches. Like that used to be something we would kind of try to hide and cover up on our face. You would want your pimple patch to be as discreet as possible. But I love that the brand Starface and other brands that make like sticker pimple patches, It's a way to be playful while you're taking care of that pimple, keeping it protected, but it's this fun, expressive thing on your face. Like, I kind of love the sticker pimple patch trend. I love when I'm out and about and I see someone. It's normally the stars, but I have seen other shapes as well. Like, I saw a girl the other day who had like flowers on. I'm like, that's so fun. To be an adult and wear stickers on your face is such a cool way to play around with acne. So I wanted to call that one out as well. Turning pimples into moles is another one that I love to do, that I do often. Especially, I kind of get excited when I have a pimple in this area. I'm like, oh, I can be Marilyn Monroe today. I like to take my eyebrow pencil or a freckle pen and just kind of dot into it, turn it into a mole. I know that's going to be more dependent on the type of acne that you have, where it is, and I know that's not an option for everyone, but I do always like to play around with that. I wanted to call that one out. The feature that was requested most in part 1 of this video was for me to talk about a large nose. And let me start off by saying I love a big nose. You can ask any of my friends. That's kind of like my type. I always say I love a big nose on a guy. Like, the bigger the better. I think it is such an attractive feature to have a strong nose, and it makes me sad that we have convinced people that's not an attractive quality, because it very much is. And as we know, with makeup, there are a lot of ways to play around with your nose shape. But again, if you were to type that in, like makeup for a larger nose, you are going to be fed a lot of tutorials on how to contour your nose to make it look smaller, which you can certainly do. And again, that is part of the fun of makeup. I love the endless possibilities with makeup and how transformative it can be. And if that makes you feel more confident, I'm all for it. But you also don't have to, okay? So I want to talk about some ways to play into a larger nose that I love. And the first one is with jewelry. So in part 1, when I talked about a large forehead, one thing that I called out was that I personally love like baby bangs on a large forehead, because there's just more like surface area there to work with, and other like smaller forehead types have a harder time carrying such a short bang because there's not as much space there. And that's part of the fun with a larger nose, is that you can do all kinds of different jewelry, and I think it looks so good. Like one nose ring or 2 nose rings, I love that as well. Or even 3, I like that too. You could do 2, 1 on each side, 2 right next to each other. You're gonna be thinking, Kelly, I don't wanna go get my nose pierced. You can also play around with that. Take a little bit of lash glue and just a tiny little jewel, tiny little pearl, tiny little whatever you have, and you can glue that on your nose for the day or for the night. You can play around with it. Also, other types of jewelry as well. In general, I find anyone that has like stronger facial features, whether that's like a larger nose, larger lips, like you can carry really bold jewelry in a beautiful way. So like if you have a large nose, playing that up with some really big like statement earrings makes such a great visual impact. Like I just think it's so pretty. It's so harmonious with your features in a way that might be harder for someone else with maybe a different nose shape or size to carry. Like it's just a good match in my opinion. Also, when it comes to makeup, you know I love the sunburnt look, and I talk about that so much, which is basically the idea of adding a blush or like a bronzer type of shade in this region to mimic a sunburn. Well, with that type of look, it does tend to kind of like widen out this area and draw emphasis there. And because of that, I love that look on a larger nose. I love the look on everyone because, as you know, I just love sunburnt blush, but I think kind of playing into that and making it a focal point is really beautiful as well. Okay, wide set eyes and close set eyes. I know these are 2 different things, but I want to group them together because this is another one. If you are to Google makeup for blank, you're basically going to turn up the same results for both. All the tutorials that you will see will suggest ways to make your eyes look less of what they are. So if you have wide set eyes, you'll see tutorials on how to create the illusion that they're not so wide set. Or if they're close set, you'll see videos that create the illusion of them not being so close set. But instead, what if you lean into that? Instead of creating the illusion that they are the opposite of what they are, why not play into how pretty it is that you have such unique eyes? I actually have the same recommendation for both that I think is really fun to try, and that is an inner corner pop of color, where you have a color, maybe it's like a light yellow, a light green, a light blue, or even a darker color. Truly, like you could do anything here, but you have that on the inner corner. That is obviously going to draw a lot of attention to that space, which is generally the advice you hear not to do if you have either of these eye shapes, because it's going to kind of exaggerate where your eyes are sitting on your face. But for me, that's part of the beauty here. It's playing into the fact, like, look at this unique feature that I have. Also, under the idea of makeup for this one, I like playing into different lashes for this. So if you wear false lashes, there are a lot of different fun looks you can play around with these eye shapes. Okay, so for example, With close set eyes, you'll probably hear the advice to do more of like an elongated lash where there's a lot more lash at the end, because again, they're gonna say it makes the illusion of pulling your eyes outward. But instead, what I like with both of these eye shapes, whether they're a little further apart or a little bit further together, there's something almost doll-like about it to me. So I like playing into that with lashes that feel a bit more fluttery, where the center of the lash is a little bit longer. That creates more of that open eye, like very rounded eye look. And I think with that eye shape, it pairs together in such a beautiful way. Or even something like manga lashes, again, to really play up and emphasize your eyes. Also on eyes, let's talk about hooded eyes, okay? Alexandra Anelli has a video all about hooded eye makeup. I talked in part 1 about how her video was one of the inspirations for this kind of deprogramming type of video, but I especially wanted to include this one right now when blepharoplasties are more popular than ever before. Left and right, we're hearing about people removing this area of their skin to no longer have hooded eyes.
I'm cutting my eyelids off tomorrow. I've always had hooded eyes, never like bad hooded eyes, not that there are bad hooded eyes, but it's never affected my vision. It's never like really bothered me that much until more recently. It really started to bother me when I realized like I couldn't do my makeup the same, but just like take that little bit of skin off, they stitch it up, and then it's supposed to look like almost completely normal within like 10 days.
And I do know for some people, especially later in life, that can be a medical reason to have done, but a lot of young people are now getting this done truly just for aesthetics. And I just want to say I love a hooded eye. Like there's still so many cool makeup looks that you can do on hooded eyes, but I think playing into this portion of the eye instead of the mobile lid really is key there. So obviously the look that you're doing on the mobile lid is going to kind of be covered up when your eye is open, but playing into that part of the eye in particular can be really cool. And there are a lot of like very editorial looks that you can do with it. If you want to go with color, you can do a really bold color on that part of the eye. You can also really lean into your lower lash line as well. This can be a great alternative if you're feeling frustrated about the makeup you're trying to do on your eyelid. Instead, kind of playing with that lower lash line in fun, sultry ways. Maybe you're doing like a very smoked out look. Maybe you're doing a pop of color there. Also, speaking of a smoky look, I love like a really intense, like black, almost smoky eye, because it never looks like too intense, because again, a lot of it is getting covered. It just seems to fit that eye in a really harmonious way.
Let's do dark makeup on hooded eyes to concentrate the darker shadows in my outer corner and inner corner. Do you see how this style just complements the hooded eye? It's still bringing sultriness and darkness, but also you can still see a lot of action on the eyelids going on. And for the color to really show, you want to blend that color up above the crease. Do the same for the bottom lash line, inner corner and outer corner. Fill the middle bit in with, and a little bit on my inner corner too.
Also, even going back to the like fun inner corner pop, this is another really cool one on a hooded eye, because it's like this area is not going to be as covered, especially if you're keeping it a little bit lower on the inner corner, like mostly going inner corner down. That's another option as well. All of these features are so beautiful, and it is a lie that we have been taught that we should be correcting them or changing them. And instead, I hope this video inspired you with ways that you can actually play into them and lean into your individual beauty. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will leave part 1 linked down below, and I will go ahead and see you in my next one. Bye.